And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Welcome to the Dice Tower!
Alright, we're in part 3 now of my series on Heroscape. Now, in the first part we talked a little bit about terrain. The last one I showed you a bit about how to play. But now I want to talk basically about the characters in the game. Are there a wide variety of characters? Look at this. Let's take a closer look at the characters themselves now. The character card has a lot of information on it, but it's still very easy to look at and learn how to play the game from it. If you look at the background color of the card itself, it shows what army there is. This is the Aquila army. They're newer. There's not as many characters for them. This is the Uller army. You'll find more fantasy people in this army. This is the Vidar army. There's a lot of robots in this army. This is the Einar army, and here you'll find a lot of historical things. So if you like historical figures, this is probably the army you'll like the best. This is the Utgard Army, and they are basically pure evil. And then this is the Jandar Army, and they are basically the good guys. And then, of course, Marvel characters have their own colored backgrounds. Now, you don't have to put all the same characters of the same army in your army. You can mix and match. It doesn't matter at all. Now, you might play a game where you have to use the background of the armies, the color of the armies, but most of the time, 95% of the time, that doesn't matter at all. So you can pick any one you want, basically just according to the points in the bottom. And I will say that these figures are very well balanced. This guy may cost 50 points. He's equal to this guy who costs 50 points. While these samurai who cost 120 points, they're better than both of them. While we see Iron Man here cost 240 points. He can take them all out possibly. And the points are very well balanced. But having a few super-powered people in your army does not guarantee you victory. Well, let's take a closer look at the cards again. And let's look at the side here. On the side of the cards, we see a few things. The top thing here tells you what race they are. So these guys are human, while the ones underneath them is some kind of race called Doggin. And underneath them we see elves. And underneath them we see dwarves. And then underneath that, we see a very important thing, a unique squad. Unique means there can only be one of this army in your one of this card or figure in your army, or the group. So I can only have one group of these samurai in my army. A unique hero means it's a single guy, and I can only have one of him. Another unique hero. Another unique hero. Here, though, is a common squad, which means I can have as many of groups of these marrow dividers in my army as I want. And there's also uncommon heroes, too, which means you can have multiple. I don't know why they added it too much. But anyway, after that, you see what their profession is and what their main characteristic is. He's rogue and tricky. That usually does not come into effect in the game, but there are a few characters that will say gives +1 to anyone who's a rogue, or gives +2 movement to scouts, or anyone who's tricky, this person gets +1 die against. So they come into play. Then here we have the size. And size matters sometimes because if some characters get bonuses for attacking large creatures, some characters can crush the life out of small characters. We have small, medium, large, huge. And then it shows you a number. That's their actual height. So for example, this dwarf has a height of 4. That's used to see how high they can climb in the course of the game. And so this information on the side is important. Just as, or even more important, are the main stats of the character. Up here we have life. This shows how many hits they can take before dying. Movement, how far they can move on the battlefield. Range, as I mentioned in my last video, if their range is 1, they only have hand-to-hand combat. If it's greater than that, that's how far they can shoot. How many dice they roll on the attack, and how many dice they roll on the defense. And then, interestingly enough, over here is a silhouette of the character. Why is this here? Well, that little green dot that you can see there is when you are measuring, do they have line of sight on someone? That is what you measure from. When you are saying, can I see somebody to shoot them? Well, yes, if you can see part of the red area. So if this dwarf is hiding behind a rock and all you can see is the point of his sword, well, guess what? You can't target him. Same thing with her. If you can see just the little fire that's in her hand, then you can't target her. This dog, if you see any part of him, even his tail, he's fair game. These guys are good as long as you can see more than their sword. And different characters will have different amounts. Here Iron Man can be hit pretty much anywhere on him. While other people, and this has always cracked me up, like the zombies, can only be hit if you see their heads. The rest of their bodies, you shoot it and nothing happens. That's a pretty neat addition to the game. But the best part about this game, and this is one of the major differences between this and the basic game, are the special abilities. Each character has one or more special abilities that they will be able to use during the course of the game. For example here, the Zombies Onslaught special attack has a range of 1 and attack of 6. 3 zombies on the same level can combine their attacks as one attack. So if they're all adjacent to the same person, instead of rolling 2 dice like normal, they can combine it up and roll 6 dice at one time, which is a big deal. And then zombies can also rise again. If your zombie kills somebody, you can turn that person into a zombie. And the characters all have different special abilities. Now I already mentioned how it's kind of annoying to store the terrain and the characters for this game. So what I've done with the characters is I find these fishing, tackle boxes, or hobby boxes, and I'll store them in there. Now I've actually put them in alphabetical order in mind so that it's easier to find them. But of course every time a new set comes out, that's kind of messed up. But I can then open the lid and say, okay, well here I'm looking for this character. Well, there she is, and here's this character, Alistair McLean, and I can pull him out of there. And I found that these characters, for the most part, will usually fit inside these boxes pretty easily. Of course, not everyone will fit into those small things, so I keep all my big characters in another box. For example, here's the dragon, and here's the worm. And I mean, these are the characters that always impress, especially younger people. They tend to use the bigger characters. I mean, come on! You can play with a couple ninjas, or you can use this dinosaur. But this brings up another interesting point of the game, is the size of figures actually matters. You see, when I'm moving a character around, I have to be able to fit that character wherever he goes. I mean, big characters are bad for one because they're very easy to shoot. But also, this character here, he can't fit under the bridge. It's physically impossible for me to stick that model under the bridge. So the rules say if it's physically impossible for you to stick the model into a certain place, it can't go there. I have to be careful even over here on the walls. When I'm sticking him here, I can't get him in there because his tail is knocking up against the tower there. And so because of that, he simply can't go there. And if I turn him the other way, well, I just knocked the tower over, which is not going to make me too happy after setting all that up. But the size of the figures does matter. And that's what makes this game so great. You don't need to look up charts. You don't need to figure out things. It's just obvious. If the character can fit in a spot, he can go there. If you can see him, you can shoot him. You simply roll dice and attack. That's it about characters. In the next episode of this, I'm going to talk about the specific sets themselves.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.